Hey guys, so I have some more dreams for you. So I've just kept journaling, and these are dreams from like October 10th to the end of October. Um, there's a lot of them, and I find them very interesting, and I thought you might as well. So I'm not going to go too much into breaking them down in interpretation. I'll let each person kind of do that on their own. But I am going to share the dreams. So, all right. The first one I had was October 10th at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was outside and it was a gloomy day, and I was looking at a church. And I'd never seen this church before. It looked like a medium-sized chapel, and the doors of the church were closed. But it was the day and time that the service was supposed to start. And I peered inside the window, and it was dark and empty. I was confused and checked the time again, and then I had a sinking feeling. That same morning at 7:41 a.m., my husband was in the dream showing me how much weight he had lost after his COVID recovery. And I was sitting behind him, and he took his shirt off. And when he took his shirt off, he had a tattoo right where he couldn't see it, like in between his shoulder blades. And it said, "The vaccine is the mark of the house." And I thought that was very strange. And I was just kind of meditating on it and trying to figure out what that meant, you know? And then strange enough, I went to church that same morning, and the pastor started talking about Christians and their place in this world. And his message was that this is not our home. And to the non-believers, this is their home. But to Christians, we are outside of the house because we are wanderers or travelers on mission. And until we reunite to our true house, the kingdom of God, we're just going to be, temporarily wandering this earth. And we're always going to be feeling out of place and, separated or isolated. So I thought that was very interesting that same day that I had that dream, that was the message. And I was like, only you could, God, like amazing. So that same night, I was waiting to fall asleep. This was October 10th. And as I lied down with my eyes closed, I saw a quick vision, and it only lasted about a second or two. And I saw a skeleton horse skull and neck. And the thing I kept thinking about during that time when I saw that, I was like, that's so strange. Like, what does this mean? And the only thing I could keep thinking about was the 4 horsemen in Revelation. And I mean, this could have easily been a warning of the 3rd horseman, the black horse, and the coming famine. Or it could also have been a warning for the pale horse that death follows. So I just thought that was very weird and interesting. And then a couple nights later, October 13th, I had another dream. I was working for one of my nanny clients, both of which were jabbed. I went to the bathroom and saw my eyes were different. One of my eyes was all gray and had little lines on it that looked like a loading computer. And there was some sort of connection between the eyes and the technology. Like from your phone, you could change the eye color. I watched as my eye changed from gray to blue. And I kept feeling like God was showing me something, especially for like the person that I was working for. Like a lot of my clients aren't jabbed. So it was just very interesting that I was at that house. But I keep feeling like he's showing me that there's going to be some kind of turning event for the people that have had jabs. and something that's connected with technology. So that's kind of the interpretation that I got on that. So change in scenery in this dream. I was observing two women who wrote warnings out on the fridge in magnet letters. And she began to read this warning letter in Spanish. And I don't know Spanish, so I had no idea what she was saying. She then turned to me and looked at me in the eyes and started speaking in English. And she said, "They must know what to do, for there will be a time when we won't be here to tell them." Then there was a change in scenery, and I heard the words, "Warning coming to a close. September 11th marks the beginning of the warning period." So also very strange. After I did have this dream, I felt that the Lord was telling me to put Rapture letters on my fridge, and not just in English, in Spanish as well. So I went online and I converted a Rapture letter also to Spanish through a Spanish translator, and I put several copies of each English and Spanish on my fridge for those who are left behind. I also put a letter in English and Spanish in my emergency backpack that I have set up with all of my emergency gear in case there was an emergency and we had to go, whether this is for somebody else or for me. The Lord did put on my heart to pack that and to have things ready for it in case of emergency. So next dream, this was also the same day, October 13th. I went into my backyard and a zombie-like creature had come over the fence. It had the head of a skull, and I ran inside and told my husband. He whacked it with something and it lied, appearing to be lifeless. He then threw it in the garbage can in the garage. And about 30 minutes later, I went back into the garage and saw the trash can was shaking violently. I went to tell my husband, and he told me he would take care of it. For some reason, he was not alarmed and went to work as usual. I called him and told him I was scared and asked him to come home. As I sat there at the window waiting for him, I saw two men dressed in a service-like uniform that were adding something outside of everybody's houses and windows. It was like right in front of my sprinkler system area. Suddenly, all the windows and screens in the house synced together like a virtual ride, and the house started getting the sensation it was flying through an orange sky. I said, "This is not good." I then began to panic for my munchkins that I nanny for, and I had the intuition that the jabbed parents were about to turn into these zombie-like creatures, and I quickly grabbed my keys to go save them. The road was a nightmare. Everyone was panicking, driving 100 miles per hour. I couldn't go my usual route because there were too many obstacles blocking the path. I kept driving, lost, hoping I was going in the right direction. And I then stopped at a small convenience store, hoping to load up on supplies. It was empty inside, and I started grabbing stuff. Suddenly, I saw under a table two children were shaking and afraid. I told them they needed to come with me now. I would keep them safe. I saw a man in military suit come in through the opposite side of the store. He said he was about to blow the place up because it was infiltrated with zombies. He said, "You have 14 seconds to get out." I grabbed the children, and it took us exactly 14 seconds to escape. What did I want to say about that? So I thought it was very interesting that the zombie-like creatures had a skeleton skull head, because the rest of them just looked pretty normal. But I felt like that might have been symbolic for these people had completely lost any sense of consciousness or their minds, like who they were as people was completely dead. They had been completely hijacked, whether it be through technology or demonic possession or whatever this is that's happening. These are kind of the connections that I've been making. So I just wanted to kind of share that as well. October 17th, 2021, I had another vision. As I laid in bed waiting to go to sleep, this one, once again, was only about a second or two. I saw a huge tree, and behind the tree was a bunch of children quietly sitting like on the grass, like crisscross applesauce. And I was standing behind them, and I watched as they all just sat there and listened, and it felt like they were listening to a teacher, but there was no one there except for the tree. And I had a feeling this was a school in heaven. So I thought that was just a beautiful vision, so I wanted to share that. October 19th, 2021, my intuition was tingling. Something really bad was coming. I went to the ATM and pulled out $500 cash, loaded up my car with my emergency backpack, a map, and a tent. I went looking for places to find a camp before going back to get my husband and my dogs. It was nighttime, and I was somewhere in a park. I looked over in the distance and saw a scattered group of zombie turners. They all had helmets protecting their heads, and it made me think this was their weakness. Damage to their head was the best way to defeat them. Then I looked over. To my right, about 20 feet away, there was a zombie hunched over a stroller, feeding on the child. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. Change in scene. My husband and I were in New York City. We were attending a business meeting. I couldn't pay attention because I looked down and saw I was wearing only one of my husband's shoes. I saw that one of them must have gotten lost along the way, so I wandered off looking for the shoe. I ended up on the roof where there was a pool party going on. I was in a swimsuit, sitting on the stairs, watching a toddler swim in the water. My intuition tingled again, and I said, "They are about to turn." I looked down and rubbed my huge pregnant belly. I looked about 8 months pregnant. I grabbed the toddler and stood up, and we grabbed the towel. We started to turn right in front of people started to turn right in front of my eyes, and they got super slow and lost all consciousness. The people next to me asked how I knew, and I said, I think the pregnancy intensified my intuition. I then started to leave, stepping over the turners. I knew I had a short amount of time before they became violent. I then got a text message from Carrie, and she said the people finally turned. And I thought, how did she know the jabs would turn? So just so you guys know, I am not pregnant. So I don't know if that might have been a connection to the pregnancy rapture, like it being very close, almost due date, that maybe these turners are going to come right before the due date. I don't know, but I just thought that was noteworthy. So next, October 20th, 2021, I was on a bus and it was packed. I had an hour to kill, so I got off the bus and got dropped off at a bowling alley to play a game before I had to leave at 2:30. When I got inside, there was a long line. I thought there was no way I'm going to have time to finish this game. My husband was suddenly behind me, and he mentioned the bus would be leaving in a short time, so we decided not to bowl. We headed back outside, and I watched as the daylight turned to blackness. I ran back inside and grabbed my lantern. I knew it was the 3 days of darkness. Change scenes. I was at a swimming pool in the water, and I saw the sky again begin to change to black. No lights around the pool. It was completely pitch black. I told everyone to get out of the pool. I swam under the water for a moment and saw the pool light up pink, but when I popped back up, it was pitch black. October 21st, 2:30 a.m. I was with my sister, trying to warn her about the 3 days of darkness. I told her that unless her heart was right with the Lord, she would be left behind. We were walking in my mom's apartment community, and there were jack-o'-lanterns in front of everyone's doors and windows. My sister looked back at me silent. She had a look on her face. She was torn between belief and doubt. And that same night between 5 and 7 a.m., I had this dream. I was on a cruise ship speaking to one of my clients, and suddenly a mega shark came through the ground. So like it came through the floor, and you just saw this massive head sticking through the floor, and the rest of the body was still underneath the ship. And he was struggling to breathe. And my client felt bad for this shark and pressed a button on the wall, and suddenly ice started coming down from the ceiling onto the shark's head. And the shark then gained strength and pushed through the ship and started eating everybody in its pathway. Then there was a change of scene, and I was in a parking lot where it looked like there should have been a store, but instead there was a giant tent-covered booth. And inside were these massive stones. They looked about 6 feet tall, very ancient-looking stones. And people were just like going through, gazing as if it was a museum. I didn't go up to the booth or the stones because I was fixated on the groups of homeless people. There was just groups and groups of homeless people all over this parking lot. And I felt really bad because I only had enough resources to help one person. And so I felt guilty for choosing the one person. Like I didn't like having to choose one person to help. But I went up to this man and I started giving him food and water. And he thanked me and then began to tell me a story. He said that a woman and her daughter both had an open vision at the same time of the same thing. And as he began to tell this story, I also began having the same vision. And I saw this massive wave. It looked about 300 feet, just huge wave. And at the top of the wave, like the very top of where it like is, starting to curl, I saw a cross, and right next to the cross it said 21. He then began to emphasize that 21 was the time of the rapture. Next, October 23rd. So this day I was driving home from work, just felt super weary, super beaten down. I'm sure as a lot of you watchmen are feeling. When you just kind of get your hopes up for certain high watch dates, or you're reading so many signs and you just kind of jump ahead, and it sometimes can be very difficult to be patient, and with that comes a lot of doubts. And I was just feeling very weary. I was feeling very doubtful in my interpretation of messages that I've gotten from the Lord, of just everything. For so long I've been a pre-tribulation rapture believer, and as this year was coming to a close, I was just feeling so defeated. I was like, is it even going to be this year? Am I like completely wrong? Is this supposed to be a mid-tribulation? Like, am I going to have to endure this? Is this why you're showing me all this that's going on? Am I going to have to be here for this? And so I just was feeling really down. And so I just was pouring my heart out to the Lord on my way home from work. I was just the whole drive home, I was talking about my doubts. I was talking about how I was feeling, about, I was confused because he'd given me all these visions of what was going to happen after the rapture, or during the tribulation and stuff. And the one rapture dream he gave me, I had seen the first beam of light come through the ceiling and then everything froze. So like I didn't experience being raptured or being taken up. And so I was like, does that mean that I'm supposed to be left behind? Like, have I been wrong all this time? I was starting to kind of freak out a little bit. And so I was just pouring my heart out to Jesus and just really, you know, being vulnerable with him, you know. And so I had prayed. I said, Lord, you've never given me a rapture dream where I actually get to experience it. Like, please, if I am going to be raptured, if I am on the right track, like, give me a dream that I'm going to experience. And that very night, he gave me a dream. He didn't delay. And in my dream, I was lying down with my eyes closed, and I felt a pull up. Like, my whole body, every cell in my body, I felt this pull up. And then I shot up into the sky and everything turned white. And I was overwhelmed with excitement and joy, and the amount of emotion was just so overpowering that in my dream I woke up and began to tell my husband what I had experienced. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was so amazing. And as I was telling him, I was just crying because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. So I thought that was pretty awesome, that the Lord, he didn't delay. He gave me that dream right away. I think just words of encouragement are so needed in these last days because it's just so heavy and it's so hard to be here, when you're light in the darkness. So I found that very encouraging. Next dream, October 25th. I was standing outside with a bunch of watchmen, and in the center of the grass on a hill stood a fellow sister in Christ. And I've only seen a couple of her videos on YouTube. She's a little bit of a prophet, a encourager, just does a lot of prayers and services. And I really have only seen a couple of her videos, but her name is Joni Bonnet, and she was the one standing at the top of this hill giving a warning to all the watchmen. And as she stood on this hill, rain started pouring down, and she spoke with such strength in her voice, so much courage, just giving a warning to all the watchmen. And she said, there will be 3 days. The first 2 days, the monsters will be released, and then he will come. And then there was a change of scene, and then I was in a large room with all the watchmen, and we were all crouched down hiding as a small dragon, the size of an eagle, flew through the room in circles. I took a long pole and started swatting the dragon, and when he noticed, or it noticed me, it swooped down to get me, and I fell quiet and silent and crouched down real low, and he couldn't get me. And then there was another change of scenes, and I had just gotten out of the shower, and I was in a towel looking through my bag for clean underwear. I had only one pair to last me 2 days, and I was stressing out about it. I decided not to worry because I would just do a little laundry. And so I continued to sit on the couch in my towel, and I scrolled Instagram on my phone. And a fellow watchman asked me, what are you doing? And I said, just scrolling. And he said, why aren't you cleaning? And I said, you're right. And I frantically got up and started cleaning, and I got dressed. Next dream, October 27th. My husband and I had missed a train, so we walked along the tracks. We stopped at a church inside, and I tried a pumpkin shake, and it was so tasty. After the service, I went to the pastor and asked to buy it. He said it cost $180, but I only had 102. He agreed to sell it to me for 102. As he made the agreement, a fellow church worker got annoyed with the pastor for selling it for less money. So before I go on, I thought this was very interesting because in this dream, when I was sitting in the service, they weren't preaching the message of God. They were trying to sell this shake. So I thought it was very interesting, and I kind of got the notion that some churches in these last days are not speaking truth. They're not speaking the meat of God or the meat of Scripture. They're just you know, they're trying to make a profit. They're trying, you know, there's just deception in some of these churches. So I've thought that was very interesting. So my dream continues. My husband and I left the church and continued down the tracks until we came to a carnival. It was gated, but we found a way through a broken fence to use the restroom. Outside the restroom was a puddle of water. When I looked in the reflection, I saw animals around a pod, and I thought of the Garden of Eden. There's a change of scene. I was holding Jackson, a toddler that I babysit, and my sister was driving a boat. It looked like a freeway in the water of boats. It made me uneasy, and I thought to myself, she can't drive this boat. I looked around, and suddenly she crashed, and the boat flipped over into the water. I held Jackson and began swimming to the surface. My sister panicked and clinged on top of us, bringing us both down. I was able to push through and put Jackson on a safe floating object. I then went back and saved my sister. Changed scenes. I walked up to another church, and I had very good vibes about this church, but I didn't know anyone there. I went to the kid area and put Jackson down to play. I wanted to leave him to go to the adult service, but I just felt that this is where I belonged. And so I sat down and I grabbed a piece of pumpkin pie and sat there and watched him play. And that was the end of my dream. That's the end of my dreams for now. If I have any more, I will keep you guys updated. I hope you guys enjoy these and get something from them, okay? Have a good one, guys. God bless.